So we are back here on the show now, and it's been about 10 days since the Kansas City Chiefs played Houston in the divisional round. Their first game of the playoffs, the Texans getting to that spot after they defeated the Los Angeles Chargers at home. And, you might be asking why I'm bringing this up now, because it's so far after the fact. But one of the biggest takeaways from that game was when, in the third quarter of that game, when Patrick ran for a few yards, right, he escaped some pressure and started running and trying to get those extra yards, right, and he eventually dropped down and, slid down pretty late, and it looked like just he simply just fell to the ground rather than actually sliding, and he drew contact from, I forget who the defenders were, but he drew contact from two defenders, and it was called for an unnecessary roughness. And during the game, if you were watching, you heard Troy Aikman really be upset about it and how it was unfair in the defenders, and how that it puts the defenders in a bad spot eventually, where they don't know when or whether Patrick's going to slide or go out of bounds and things like that. So they're caught in between a hard spot and a rough place, and they just got to do something. And it always feels like they end up with the short end of the stick. So Aikman, on the broadcast on Saturday on ESPN, he wasn't a big fan of the unnecessary roughness calls. And afterwards, a lot of people watching the game also weren't happy with it as well. And it led to a lot of debate with, a lot of people saying that the Chiefs get all the favorable calls, that the refs are always on their side, and, the top quarterbacks always end up benefiting from plays like that. The tie always goes to the quarterback. Any sort of hesitation or doubt, you'd have to go and prioritize the safety and health of the multi-million, faces of the NFL. So while that is a reality, and after so much talk about it everywhere, quite honestly, ESPN reported that over this past weekend that the NFL is expected to expand replay assist this offseason for plays that now would include the quarterback slide. And replay assist, if you have no idea what that is basically remote officials helping with calls made on the field, and basically reviewing plays like the spot of the ball, whether a pass was incomplete or not. If the on-field officials can't really see it, replay assist is there to help out with that. Or intentional grounding calls, late hits out of bounds, high hits on quarterbacks, and really replay assist is there to correct any on-the-field calls that the on-the-field officials might have missed or called incorrectly, because, they don't always have a good vantage point on these plays. It's always so quick and fast, and there's a lot of people everywhere, so they don't always make the right calls, which is fair. You have the human aspect of it. So replay assist is there to just provide, sort of that safety blanket, right? If they do mess up a call, they're there to kind of tell them, like, yo, like, this is not how you called it. You might want to take another look at it, or we'll take another look at it, and it's actually this instead of that, what you called. So I thought it's a pretty good integration to the league so far this year. I thought it's been pretty clean for the most part, and now they're going to potentially explore in the offseason the potential of having quarterback slides being something that replay assist can look at after the fact and say, you know what, like, the quarterback did get hit late there, or you know what, he actually didn't get hit that hard, take away the flag, or maybe you want to throw a flag there or something like that, right? That's where I feel like this is leading to, and not only potentially adding them in, but also changing how they're identified on late hits to sliding quarterbacks. And NFL officiating and rules analyst Walt Anderson said that because Patrick's helmet on that play moved a little bit, right? There was a little bit of contact, I think, with maybe the arm or the hand of one of the defenders. Walt Anderson said that because that contact forced Patrick's helmet to move a little bit, it warranted that flag being thrown and meeting the criteria for unnecessary roughness. So according to these reports, that could also be something that could end up being changed, right? How these officials call the rules and really lay out the criteria. Because, in all honesty, if it's just based on the contact and the movement of Patrick's helmet, then you can call a lot of things as unnecessary roughness, right? And that seems like it's leaning too far in favor of the offense. So hopefully they not only change replay assists to include quarterback slides, but also taking another look at the rules and seeing how they're called as well. So for me, overall, I think replay assist should be used. I think it should be used on all plays, honestly. Like some holding calls, some defensive calls as well. I'm trying to think, just like illegal formations is another one that always gets it, and false starts I think could be another one, depending on how quick and how often you throw the flag out there, right? Because you can't do it all the time, and false starts is a tricky one to kind of make a call like that, but illegal blocks or illegal, some sort of play like that where, you can review it. And if it's a big call, like a holding call down the field on a defensive back or offensive pass interference, things like that, I feel like replay assist should really just always be there to review the play anyway, as just like a second-hand evaluation of a play and see if everything, kind of pairs up. And if it doesn't, yeah, it might drag the game on a little bit longer because you could start nitpicking, but I think to ensure the game goes as fairly as possible, I think that would be something that I would be in favor of if they were to change that. But also, the downside of that could also be the subjectivity that comes along with it, because one of the remote officials could see it differently than another, and both of them could see it differently than somebody at home. It's never going to satisfy everybody, but I think it's just more of a fact that you want to at least show that you're giving the effort and the action to try and correct it, rather than it not being in the rules and you're just like, oh well, like we can't review it. And you don't want to have a situation where you clearly should review it and it should be included in replay assist, but because it's not, you just kind of leave it. That's always the worst, situations, right? Like I think like a couple years ago, where defensive pass interference couldn't be reviewed, or it could be reviewed or something like that, and there was a play that was supposed to be pass interference, but because they can't review it or anything like that, like the other team is just sort of beat. They can't do anything. It's not in the rules, so they just gotta live with it. Even though it's pretty obvious that it is this foul or this other foul, they can't do anything about it. And I think that's what you want to try to avoid at all costs. And in regards to Patrick's slide, I think he even said after the game, where they asked him about it, that he said that he probably shouldn't have done that, right? Kind of baiting the defender and then just kind of dropping down to make it look like he's sliding. But I thought it was a pretty bad call. You could see that they really hit each other more, the two defenders. They hit into each other more than they actually hit Patrick. So it felt a little bit overblown. It felt just like the ref just kind of threw it to at least have it out there rather than not throwing it at all. And if it ends up being worse, then you kind of look pretty bad because you didn't throw the flag, right? I think a lot of them are just quickly drawn to it because they don't want to be looked upon as the ref that didn't throw that flag and protected the quarterback, right? So it's always in that favor, but I can't help but think that with all these, changes I'm suggesting and how replay assist should always be there, you can't help but think that it just is going to add more drama and more division among, opinions and calls and refs and the fans on social media and things like that. But I think the main thing is changing it in how these calls are officiated, right? Not just so much that we just need to have more replay assists, but I think my main point is just changing how these rules are officiated a little bit, because a flag for just seeing his helmet move and seeing some sort of remote contact to his helmet is a little bit overblown, is a little bit crazy in my opinion. So what I'd like to see change, in regards to the rules here a little bit is with replay assist, having it for all calls or most calls except offensive line and defensive line holding calls, because you could start nitpicking those. So I'm not going to include those in here. But when it comes to quarterback slides and how they change the officiating around that, I would like to see a flag on a sliding quarterback only when he clearly goes to slide and when the defender also doesn't show any signs of slowing down, right? If the quarterback abides by all the rules and directly goes to slide and the defender, doesn't really hold up or, kind of brace himself, then you could throw the flag, right? Because then you kind of see that the defender is not on the same, level as the quarterback. Because the quarterback's giving himself up and the defender is still, running at him, then you could throw a flag in that scenario. But where I kind of go away from that is this other rule, or this other way of officiating a quarterback slide, is if a quarterback, sort of doesn't directly go down, but rather, tries to kind of shimmy his way, try to throw in there a juke or a spin move or gain some extra yards and kind of make a football move, as some as a lot of refs say during the games, right? He made a football move, so they count it as a fumble or as a reception or something like that, right? If you see that the quarterback clearly makes a football move rather than just easily sliding and going down, then I think you have to consider him a runner and not really a quarterback, right? So if he is going to be considered a runner like I want him to be, then the defenders can go and hit him a little bit, like a running back, right? Not just a quarterback and protecting and easing up on him. Because at that point, if he's trying to shimmy, if he's trying to gain extra yards, if he's trying to juke one of these defenders, or worst case scenario, run right through them where they kind of let their guard down, then you're not really protecting the defender in that scenario, right? You're going too much in favor of the quarterback. And I feel like if they clearly make a football move like that, then they become a runner in that scenario. And, sliding late, just dropping down isn't going to protect you like it would if you were a quarterback. And I think doing that, you'll kind of start to filter out some of the indecisiveness where quarterbacks try and manipulate the rules in their favor, which I have no problem with. Trying to extend the limit of the rules in your favor. That's not really on them. I have no problem with that. They're just doing whatever it takes to win. And it's more on the NFL to kind of fix that if they don't want to see that happen. So if replay assist actually, does start to include quarterback slides, it will be something that I'm sure is going to bring up a lot more discussion, for sure, if anything, next season when replay assist deems that it is an unnecessary roughness call or it's not an unnecessary roughness call, and all the other millions of scenarios that we can have with that. But it took a moment like that for them to make a decision like this, potentially. So they're going to talk about it at the owners' meetings and things like that over the summer. But for right now, it is still in its infant state. So we're going to leave it at that and move on to our last couple segments here, talking about the Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. Firstly, focusing on the Bills, we're going to discuss where and what they could do going forward after suffering another tough loss like they did. Where can they go and where can they look to try and improve to hopefully, a year from now, be a lot happier potentially and be on their way to a Super Bowl? Where could they improve? We're going to answer those questions coming up next.